All right. So you gained a point on me last week. Good week for you.
Finally.
I think it's, what is it? 42-31 now. So still got some work to do, but in the right direction. And but I'm up first this week. So with the first pick of the week 12 Sunday six pack presented by FanDuel, I am going with the Green Bay Packers +7 at the Philadelphia Eagles. And I'm just going to keep targeting this Eagles team. It's that time of the season when you had a certain perception, feel good story. The Eagles, oh my God, they're undefeated. They're legit Super Bowl contenders. Don't get me wrong, but no team is ever as good as it looks in those first 6-7 weeks of the season. It's just a lot comes down to who you play and how things go your way. And the Eagles have been the second luckiest team according to our Action Network luck rankings by Sean Kerner, while the Green Bay Packers are the sixth most unluckiest team. So there's a luck gap here of -25, and it's in favor of the Packers. And teams with a double-digit luck differential have covered about 58% of the time. So props to Kerner for the luck rankings. But you look at this Packer team, and you know me, I've been pretty hesitant to back Green Bay. I was fading them a lot earlier in the season, just kind of capitalizing on this sputtering offense. But I know Rodgers. People are going to make a big deal of the hand, but I think some things are working in their favor finally. For one, you have the receivers that he needs healthy. You have Lazard, Watson, and Cobb. I think those three guys are the guys he would prefer. I know, we both like Dobbs, but wasn't quite working with him and Dobbs, especially not as in the explosive way that it was working with Watson. Watson will still drop some balls, but he just kind of has a knack for getting open in the end zone and just kind of being where Rodgers needs him to be. And I think Rodgers is really missing that. I mean, look what Davante Adams did for Derek Carr in that Raider game. And Philadelphia, the Green Packers are going to be able to run the ball enough here. I know Linval Joseph and Sue did help, but those guys are still coming off the street. I think the Philadelphia defense is still vulnerable against the run. I think Rodgers is going to be able to have some success kind of picking apart these zones with his preferred receivers healthy. You have the long break. And Philadelphia, though, they started 5-2 against the spread as a favorite, which is hard to do. Keep covering as a favorite week after week after week. So they started 5-2 against the spread as a favorite. Then they're playing Houston, 14-point favorite, best team in the league versus the worst, according to some people. Didn't cover that one. Next time, okay, -11 against the Commanders, lost outright. And then the next week, we had them. They were minus, the Colts were +6.5 against the Eagles. Philadelphia probably should have lost that game, walked through it, struggled, just completely out of sorts. The offense not looking as explosive without Goddard. It's just everything's a little choppier. Jalen Hurts, the more he's forced to make decisions, it's not always, he's still generally a smart quarterback with the ball, but there's going to be, just like there are with most quarterbacks, some ugly moments. And I just see the luck continuing to kind of run out for the Eagles and reverse course. And, you've talked about it. I know it didn't go your way on the Thursday night game. I don't know what got into Ryan Tannehill and Downing, and that was just an odd game. But I do think that the Packers can get enough going for them in this one with, laying a touchdown here are the Eagles. And we've seen this time after time again this year. When you have these games with a middling or low total and an underdog of 3.5 or more points, the dog is covering at a 70% clip when the total's 47 or below. So, I just think this is too many points for a Packers team that it's not great, but it's competent enough. Just like the Colts with Jeff Saturday aren't great, but they were competent enough to get it to really almost walk out of there with a victory. Rodgers, still not likely to turn the ball over a ton. I know he's had some unlucky interceptions, but I think the long rest will do him good because he wasn't on the same page with Watkins when he came back. Him and Watson are still developing chemistry, even though they've got a ton of touchdowns. But I think Green Bay can do enough on offense, and they have enough on defense to continue to make it tough on Phil. And I think this is the part of the season where if Philly's going to keep winning, they're going to start winning by a lot closer margins, and it's not going to be, they're ripping off, 3-4 straight big numbers as a favorite. So give me the Green Bay Packers +7 on the road.
The Packers are nothing here. For me, I'll probably be on them. I show some value in this line. You've extended time off. I think that, Cobb being back without Maddox in the slot, and Rodgers attacking these zones could have some success. I do think that the Eagles also miss Goddard, as you mentioned, especially like in the red zone and then on some third downs over the middle of the field. The only thing that concerns me is that, like, and this is something that I've just have been pondering the past week, is all year Rodgers is, his receivers haven't getting separation. His offensive line hasn't been giving him time. The offensive line has looked better of late. And look, they've been so unlucky all year on fourth downs, etc. But his wide receivers were finally getting open against the Tennessee backup corners, and he was getting time, not under pressure, and he couldn't hit an open. Like, I've never seen Rodgers make throws like that in my entire life. Like, a guy running a post with no one near him, throw it in one. It looked like Zach Wilson. So was that the hand? Was it the start of the decline? And I've just been giving him a pass because I'm like, it's his receivers and it's his offensive line. And like, have I not been harsh enough on Rodgers and downgraded the offense enough and just being like, it's unlucky, the receivers are going to figure it out. So that is, so whether it's injury or just decline in play due to age, which is, father time is undefeated. That's the only thing that scares me.
I personally think that, just having done the podcast with you, I think you were a little slow on adjusting Rodgers down. I think he is declining. I do think the injury is bothering him a little more than he's letting on. But that being said, taking all that into account, I still think there's enough margin for error here with them healthy, and with what the Eagles team has been looking like ever since that hot start. I do think there's enough margin of error, as there has been in most of these games this year, when you have a spread of 4, more than a field goal, really. So, I don't think this is like, we wouldn't be getting Aaron Rodgers as a 7-point dog if everything were fine and dandy in Green Bay. It just wouldn't happen. But I just think the way this Eagles team is playing, this pack, even on defense, flip it over. What do the Packers like to do? Their fans hate them for this sometimes. They like to play soft zones and just kind of sit back, and it's maddening at times, but that's kind of how you want to play against the Eagles. Don't let them beat you over the top. Let Jalen Hurts have to scan the field and dink and dunk, and give a chance to them to get a holding penalty or two. We saw that happen against the Colts. Just kind of play it that way. So I just think they match up well, but it was also a Thursday night. It was just what was it, snowing or raining or something? I mean, that was not the ideal conditions, and it's still going to be another night game. So, but I think the long rest, I think getting more chemistry with this group of receivers together, which is an underrated facet with this, because the offense has been what's holding the Packers down. Rodgers being able to practice with Lazard, Watson, Cobb on the field, for a good, 10 days now, and coming up with a plan to beat this Eagles team that, they just had that was an emotional win for them in Indianapolis, because apparently Sirianni wanted to avenge Reich. They barely won that game. So even though they're coming back home here, I could be a little bit of a letdown spot for Philly. So I think it's a good Packers spot.
Yeah, at 7. I agree. I like the Packers too. All right, for my first pick and the second overall of the Week 11 Sunday 6-pack presented by FanDuel, I am going with the Jacksonville Jaguars +4 at home against the Baltimore Ravens. This isn't rocket science here. The Ravens offense is struggling right now. They're struggling to build margin. They have all year. It's like, look, they don't have any continuity in the backfield. You had Dobbins go out, and then you had Gus Edwards go out, and you're trying to make it work with Kenyon Drake. the offensive line. There's been a lot of moving pieces. Ronnie Stanley got banged up again. We'll see if he's able to go. At least it's not season ending. And then, just at wide receiver, you're pretty limited, especially with Mark Andrews, who hasn't been 100%. So it's just a team that's been struggling to build margin. It's also a team that's in a stretch, a very easy stretch. They're in a nice winning streak here against some cupcake teams. They have the easiest stretch of remaining games in the NFL for what it's worth. They have the Broncos coming home next week. So they're like kind of just sleepwalking a little bit. And they go down to a Jacksonville team that's been competitive all year. They've only had one loss. They have 7 losses. They have only one was by more than one possession. That was by 10 against the Chiefs in a game where they missed a couple of field goals, although they were outplayed. But they're coming off of a bye here with a good coach. And I think that's important when you're going to play the Ravens. Unique offense, and you get some extra time to prepare here. Historically worth about a half point. I think in this case it's worth maybe between a half and a point with the bye. So I think this line should be just right around a field goal. And it's a decent spot for the Jags, and their run defense has been good, and I like their run defense, which is important against the Ravens right now. The Ravens don't have the type of receivers and passing attack right now that's just going to take advantage of the primary weakness of this Jacksonville team, which is their secondary. So I like the matchup, the spot, and the number. I think it should just be 3. My guess is this ends up being a field goal result.
Yeah, you and I, we like to joke about players who never actually make it onto the field. Shaquille Leonard. I feel like Deshaun Jackson needs to be added to that list. He wasn't even on the active roster. He got elevated for that one game, blew out his hamstring, and just he's like, just, it's like I saw people rank him in fantasy as if he was on the active roster. I'm like, wait, they didn't elevate him. He's not on the roster, and then Robinson, they awaken. Like you got it. Your offense is out of sorts when DeMarcus Robinson gets a 100-yard game on volume. That's it's one thing if Mahomes just hits him with a bomb, and but he's out there operating as your number one receiver. I thought that game got blacked out or there's a power outage or something because I just didn't see it on Red Zone, Baltimore, Carolina for pretty much 3 hours. So yeah, it's Baltimore just it's a good way to put it. They're kind of sleepwalking. I will have more on this game a little later on. So let's keep it moving with my second pick and the third overall of the week number 12 Sunday 6-pack. I am going with the Carolina Panthers plus 2.5 at home against the Denver Broncos. And I'm not going to shy away from these 2.5s. Did it with the Raiders last week. And lo and behold, this Bronco team, you said it. Every game is the exact same thing. The Broncos they might score the first touchdown of the game. It'll be their only touchdown. They'll tack on a bunch of field goals. The margin of error will get lower and lower as the game progresses. And a team that everyone thinks is just completely packed it in and has no chance, like the Panthers, who, again, didn't do anything against the Ravens defense last week. I think they hang around and I think they win this game. I think that's why this number is 2.5. It hasn't gone to 3 because I think the Panthers are a live dog in this spot at home. You're getting Sam Darnold here, which I actually think is a positive. As you know, I refuse to bet on Baker Mayfield with this team. He just mucks up the offense. I can't put it any better than that.
What does Sam Darnold do exactly?
Well, so here's the thing with Sam Darnold. For example, let's go back to when he first came on the Panthers. Everyone's like, oh my God, Sam Darnold is the worst quarterback. The Jets, and I was saying that, right? But like most backup quarterbacks, you can have success for few weeks, and then you get figured out. Like you always talk about Kyle Allen, Cooper Rush is another one. Well, Sam Darnold won his first 3 games with the Carolina Panthers against similarly, inept competition in terms of not being able to score. They beat the Jets, the Saints, and the Houston Texans. By the way, this Bronco team, the reason I'm targeting them is because I don't believe that they can put together competent offense. So the Broncos have scored 16 or fewer points in all but 2 games this season. And I went back and looked at Sam Darnold's starts with the Panthers. He cleared 17 points in 7 of 11. So I just don't think this offense is going to look as bad as it did under Mayfield, who he couldn't do anything from a clean pocket. He couldn't do anything under pressure. He looked considerably worse than PJ Walker, who is essentially the third string. So I'm of the belief that this Carolina team is more like a average to slightly below average team. I mean, they have talent on the team on both sides of the ball. You know, the offensive line is quietly pretty decent. I think they had a Baker Mayfield issue because they were just starting to show signs of life, you know, covered a few with them. They had the one really bad game against the Bengals, but just starting to show signs of life. And then Mayfield comes back in and it all goes to shit. So, you know, they have no tape really on this offense with Darnold this year. Matt Rule is gone. So you're not combining Matt Rule with Darnold. I like the Panthers in this spot. I think they're able to put up enough points. And by the way, this Bronco defense, which, you know, they hang their hat on, it's not the same defense. We talked about this with, you know, last week. They don't have Gregory. They don't have Chubb. They don't have Darby. They don't have Williams. They don't have Stearns. You know, there's more guys I'm missing on the second level. You know, this defense has a few guys. They got Surtain, but it's not the same defense. Simmons is not playing well this year. It's not the same defense. And then on offense, the Broncos still have half of their offensive line on IR. They ain't coming back. Your center, your left tackle, Garrett Bowles. I mean, this is, you know, everyone said, oh, Kubiak, Russ looked a little better. He's completing a higher percentage. Yeah, the Raiders are 32nd in defensive DVOA. They're dead last against the pass. And the Broncos managed to score 16 points. So I'm not sweating Carolina, you know, coming off a game where they were held essentially with no scoring. You want to back teams in that kind of spot. So I like the unknown with Darnold. I like the fact that Rule's gone. I like that Darnold actually started out well with Carolina last year. And then once teams started to figure, you know, get some more tape, that's when it went downhill. And I think this Denver team, they could hand you a cover. I mean, Russell Wilson throwing incomplete last week with after the 2-minute warning. By the way, Denver took a penalty on a 2nd and 17. Sack would have made it 2nd and 17. They take the 1st and 20. 3 yards? Are you kidding me? Like, this Denver team is inept. Hackett's just grasping at straws. Russell Wilson has no awareness. I don't know what is up with Russ. Like, he literally has no awareness. Everything is just, okay, there's a problem. I'm trying to fix it. But there's no awareness from play to play. So, yeah, I think I'm not worried about Darnold at all. Give me the Panthers here. Plus 2.5, you know, because I think they win the game.
Gross. I won't bet Darnold. I actually think it's a downgrade from Baker to Darnold, but I will be teasing the Panthers a teaser for the later segment because every Broncos game is a script. I don't know who's going to win, but someone will win by 3. It'll be like 13-10 with 2 to go. This total's at 36.5. There hasn't been a total that closed below 35 in the past 10 seasons, the NFL. Maybe this is the one. We will see if Denver can get a little boost from a play caller change. I don't know. Can't get.
They had that last week.
I know. I'm just saying, like over time, like they
against the worst defense in the league. It wasn't the play calling. It was they just play stupid. Like
I know. I'm just saying over time we will see. That's a one data point. It can't be worse than Hackett calling plays. And what an incompetent staff though. It's like they had a hire guy from out of like to do the game management. They had to hire an X-rated
terrible
guy.
at it.
They have an offensive-minded coach and an offensive coordinator, but neither of them call plays now. It's the quarterback coach that calls.
Like, what
plays.
are you doing? Yeah.
The Panthers are also a disaster too. So, but this is the script. I don't mind it.
I don't think it's. But see, with the Panthers, every time people think the Panthers are dead,
yeah, the spread should be a pick.
Thank you. Okay,
so I don't mind it, but I'm just saying, I'm just gonna tease it.
That's fair.
All right. For my second pick and the 4th overall of the Week 11 Sunday 6-pack, I'm going with the New York Football Jets minus 4.5 at home against Chicago Bears. We're recording this early in the week. Here's my premise. I'm assuming that you can't let Zach Wilson go on the field again. And if they do, I'm assuming he will have the quickest leash of all time. So he's either going to be like, all right, semi-efficient because he's playing against one of the worst pass defenses and defenses overall in the NFL. But I assume he's getting benched, and you're going to go with Flacco here or White. I don't care who it is. It's going to be better than Zach Wilson, mainly not only for the upgrade and the guy who can at least just complete passes in the flat, but also just for the locker room. Not only did they average 2.5 inches per play in the second half, 2 total yards, he didn't take accountability for it, and he was arrogant about it. And it was the easiest question to answer. Did you let your defense down? You say, of course, yeah, offense got to be better. Easy. He said no. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, that is, you're a rookie making all this money, and you're shitting the bed for a defense that's balling out every week, and that's your response. And like, you have guys like, there's mumblings out there. Garrett Wilson, like, this can't happen. And some of the throws he missed, but just for the locker room alone. So I think they make the change. If they don't, I promise you the New York crowd will make them make the change if they weren't planning on it right away. But I think he has a short leash. I think that this line's going to go up. I think if they make the change, I also think that the Bears aren't going to play Justin Fields. So we'll see. So, but I mean, there's rumblings out there that it could be season ending, but this has been a dream. If you're a Bears fan, this has been a dream past month. Like, you had a good, losing Roquan Smith hurt, you got some more draft capital. You're losing close games, but seeing that Fields, all the improvement with Fields, like, you don't want to win these games. Like, you're not doing anything this year. So they've already seen what they needed to see from Fields. And he also is hurt. He's banged up. He's been getting hit all over the place. But now just get your best draft pick possible. You've already seen that Fields can be your franchise quarterback. Now you got to build the rest of your roster up. And with this roster right now without Fields is bad. Especially because you're going to have a quarterback in there that doesn't have mobility like Fields behind a really bad offensive line against a defense that can get pressure without blitzing and can lock up any one of the Bears receivers on the outside. I don't know how the Bears scored. Like, I just need Flacco or White. I don't care who it is to come in, complete like 8 passes to the flats, run it a little bit, go up, get to 14 points against this bad Bears D should be enough. So yeah, this is a little speculative bet on my part, but I think that Fields will be out, and I think that I'm either going to get good Zach, like not good, but just like competent Zach Wilson, like in the Bills game, where he just completes like little passes, or I'll not get him at all, or I'll get him pulled if he's not good. So like if he starts, I think that he's either going to be okay enough, or as soon as he does one thing bad, he's done. Short leash. But my personal opinion, I would not start him just for the locker room, for his arrogance, which just speaks volumes about his leadership ability and maybe some of the reasons why he isn't improving. I don't care about stats. Well, maybe you should, but I'm going to lay it here with the Jets. The biggest thing is I don't think Fields goes, and I think that the Jets defense can just completely shut down Trevor Siemian, and I don't know what the Bears will do on offense.
This has the potential to be the all-time greatest moment of this podcast, because you just made fun of me for taking points, betting against the other shitty Wilson, who can't do anything right, to potentially lay points on Zach Wilson. Potentially, it's not out of the question. So this, I mean, if they actually star him, it's going to be funny. But I don't think they would go back to Flacco. I think it would have to be Mike White, right? Because
I don't care who it is. It could be you.
Yeah, no, I'm saying I just don't think they, like, me and Sean were talking about this. It's like, because we were talking about Tyler Conklin, and now he's pretty much only had good games with Flacco. And it's like, yeah, but you kind of said Zach Wilson's our quarterback for better or worse. We got to grow with the guy. So, maybe now that you think you're in a playoff race, you change things, but I still don't see how you go back to Flacco, because he didn't, he wasn't good either. So I think it's either Mike White or nothing, but I still.
But Flacco was way better over. Flacco still has more touchdown passes than Zach Wilson still somehow. Either one's fine for me. I think that you're either going to get Zach Wilson where he doesn't make any mistakes and he's completing these baby passes. He's playing against one of the worst pass defenses in the NFL. Or I think you're getting him pulled. But I think he's not starting. Based on the comments, like they didn't give him they didn't bless him. They said we're keeping it open, and all the comments in the locker room, the comments that he made, the comments that the fans are making, any media pundit ever out there is saying you have to bench him, they have there's no reason to not bench him after what he did in that post-game interview. And after one of the worst, that is the single worst quarterback performance I've ever watched in my life. And I've watched a lot of bad ones.
Hackenberg in preseason one time was really bad, but
that's preseason. I'm talking about an actual regular season game.
Maybe the Nathan Peterman half. But no, I initially I thought the same thing, but I will say that I've also had the thought that, okay, what was Zach Wilson's, main error here? It was that he failed to take accountability. It's like the play on the field is one thing. And they've already said they're willing to live and teach, teachable moments, willing to kind of let him, learn on the job. But, failing to take accountability, like you said, that's an easy thing to do. So I did have the thought that they could just be kind of letting him roast to the media, not naming him the starter, making everyone think he's going to get benched as kind of a way to kind of, as a teachable moment in itself. Like, all right, you don't want to take accountability. Well, now let's see how it feels when we put you out to dry, So that I do worry that they're doing that and that he is gonna actually start the game. But we're all speculating.
He's getting pulled right away. Especially with the crowd. You're not, if he comes out and has can't complete a wide open flat pass to the flat again, where he's just missing wide open throws, or he can't see wide open receivers streaking down for a touchdown. If that happens again early, number one, as an organization, how do you not pull him? You're in the playoff race. Number two, you're going to cause a riot in your stadium if you keep this kid out here. So anyway, where are you going next?
I mean, this is like already one of my favorite moments of this whole pod. Like just the fact that you might, just the fact that you might have unwittingly laid points on 60 Minutes of Zach Wilson after all the shit that you talked about this dude has to be one of the funniest. Like this is like this could be the start of your like a true nemesis, like that stretch where you kept betting against backup quarterbacks, it was against backup quarterbacks, right? I forget but like this has that kind of explosive potential, man. So stay tuned, everybody, and leave us a review. Tell us which Wilson bet is worse out of these two, because this is just hilarious. Like, I bet on Darnold and you followed it up by betting on Wilson, potentially betting on Wilson. Mid-season form for the Action Network NFL podcast. All right. I got one more pick. Yeah. For my third and final pick in the 5th overall for the Week 12 Sunday 6-pack presented by FanDuel, I'm going with the Cleveland Browns plus 3.5 at home against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And this is I like this spot for Cleveland here because I just don't think anyone thinks they're going to show up in this spot. And I think they will, because I think it's just getting embarrassing what's going on defense. But let's look at what's really Cleveland's biggest issue, interior, run defense.
Tackles get shoved around every
right. Yeah. They get moved. Well, against the Bucs, their run game is not, it's not scaring anybody. This Bucs offense, bottom 3 in the league, running the football. And everyone says, Rachaad White, he is going to, spearhead this run game. Like, this is not Breece Hall we're talking about. If you look at the advanced metrics, White versus Fournette, they're pretty much the same. Yards after contact, all that stuff. There's not a massive difference between the two. It's simply the Bucs offense, the offensive line, the interior of the offensive line. It's just not great. And, we've seen 11 weeks into the season now. This is who the Bucs are. They're just a team. They're not really going to separate from anybody. Even when it looked like they had control against the game against the Seahawks, I mean, they almost let them back in. So, this Browns team now at home, underdog game where you should see wind gust regardless up to 25 miles per hour, but you could also see some rain. I think the team with the better run game here, the Browns, has a little bit of an advantage. And you talked about it. We've seen it. This Browns team never really out of a cover because they can put up points running or throwing the ball. Like it used to be that you had to be really careful with the Browns because if they got behind, they just couldn't do anything. Well, this offense with Cooper and Peoples-Jones, you got Njoku healthy. Brissett just seems to, slip and slide his way out of pressure and out of the pocket. He doesn't make a ton of, he doesn't turn the ball over a ton either. So backdoor, if they need it, is a possibility. But I just think that this team, the defense is pissed. Myles Garrett's calling out his teammates. I think they're gonna go really hard in this game because what is it? The last game before Watson too. I think they're gonna go really hard. I think it's been an embarrassment for them. So I think you're gonna get a great effort out of them. I think the leaders are gonna kind of hold guys accountable, and I think you're gonna see this Bucs team. I mean, it kind of reminds me of that spot against Carolina where it's like, new coach, team can't do anything, and in the Bucs, they just come out flat, a couple drops, and there's just no margin for error. I just feel like it's the same thing with the Browns. You don't even you're coming off a bye and you're a little bit healthier, you still don't have a massive margin for error here. If you're the Bucs like you used to, it's just Nick Chubb can just score a couple touchdowns on you, that might be enough with the way Amari Cooper's playing, and you're gonna get some points on the Browns defense, but are you gonna be able to put up 30 like the Bills or a team that the Dolphins is able to do? I don't think this Bucs team can do that because they haven't done it to this point. So give me the Browns as a home dog in a spot where everybody is counting them out. By the way, the Browns are, they've had their issues, but they are the fourth unluckiest team in the league. So also got that going for them. And as I mentioned, underdogs by more than a field goal with a total of 47 or less are 48-22, 69% against the spread this season. And underdogs that the public is not on, because the public's been on a lot more underdogs this year. I guess they're catching on and hasn't been doing too bad. But underdogs that are not the public side, so getting 50% or less of the bets, 45-19-1, 70% against the spread. And the public is on the Bucs here. So loving me some Browns plus 3.5.
Yeah, I get the spot. I am actually, I normally would never say this, but I am worried about, this is usually an overrated narrative aspect. They're professional athletes, but I am worried about their locker room. Like everything that I've been reading, I know some people close to the team. I mean, you already mentioned Garrett on the team. That doesn't mean much, but like guys coming out and saying, no one knows where they're supposed to go.
Mm-hmm. Delpit, I think, said that.
They're in zone and man at the same time. They're not like Joe Woods has to go. I think it's a bad situation with the defense, and it's like turning toxic. And last week, you said, they covered against the Bills. The Bills, they were stuck in their house from Wednesday to Saturday. They didn't practice, and then they fly to Detroit. And Allen, obviously, his arm is like just butt fuck to start the game. They don't get a first down until like midway through the second quarter, and then still just didn't matter. And again, the Browns needed to win. Just some of the defensive lapses and like letting the Bills run all over you is bad. I mean, no, the Bills haven't been running on anybody. Everyone is like setting records against the Browns. They're the worst rush, and since EPA has been recorded, they're the worst rush EPA if the season ended today in NFL history.
Yeah, that's perfect against the Bucs, though. Like that's out of all teams.
But does it matter? Like, can the Bucs even do it? So that's the question in the weather. And the Bucs do have a good run defense, and it's not as elite, which helps a little bit here as it's been. But I believe the Browns center is out, right? Which
like the really, third center.
yeah, which like bit them last week because they were trying to run quarterback sneaks back to back behind their backup center who was getting blown up. So maybe that could be an issue here against the Bucs. So yeah, I get the spot. I think that there is a little bit of value, but the defense there's something going on there. And usually you don't see this many comments from different people. So we'll see, but I definitely don't hate hate the play.
Yeah.
All right, for my third pick and the 6th overall of the Sunday 6-pack, I'm going with the Cincinnati Bengals -2.5 against my Tennessee Titans.
Oh boy.
Yeah, so that's pickings are slim. It's probably one of the toughest weeks I've seen. This is the only other game I played. You mentioned Green Bay. I'll probably end up playing them. San Fran, I couldn't see a teaser piece. We'll get to some of these games, but Chargers got away from me. This is really the only game I've left. So that I played. And I do have to give credit to Tennessee last week for the win, because it was the first time that I faded them this year that I actually upgraded them after the game. So, I'll get all the shit from Tennessee fans this week. They did ruin my streak, my Packers streak. I was 9-0 against the spread with the Packers. And, every time that the games I go back, like I set numbers and there's matchups and I adjust my numbers. Like I faded them against the Giants. The Giants went outright. Like you got to look at some of these games. Here are their wins. First of all, they're 7-3. They beat the Colts twice, the Raiders, the Texans, the Packers, and the Broncos. And Washington with Carson Wentz, like a Washington team that was incompetent. Even if you include all the Heineke wins, and they didn't get to face Heineke. And by the way, they gave up 400 yards to Wentz, and he just threw a pick at the goal line in the final minute. Otherwise, they would have won. The teams they beat are 21-40-2, and they were outgained by 238 total yards by the Colts in 2 meetings. And things like, you could say, they do all the little things right. But there's also things that happen that have nothing to do with Vrabel, and they're just lucky. The Colts, Matt Ryan gets gripped down by a face mask, and they don't call it on a sack, and then the next play is a pick six. Derrick Henry gets tackled on a 3rd and long loss by his chest, and they call it a personal foul. Massive swings in that game. The Raiders went 2 of 6 in the red zone. It's like, these are games where I look at and I'm like, the Washington outplayed Tennessee. Last week, they outplayed the Broncos. They outplayed the Broncos. 2 defenders run into each other. They outplayed the Packers last week, and I upgraded them. They have sort of like a service academy type of feel where they're like, their success rates are probably going to be lower than you expect a good team, and they're going to be a little better in the red zone. They're going to be a little better on 4th and 1s because you have Derrick Henry than maybe an average team. And if you look back over the past few years under Vrabel, they've always been really good in the red zone. But this team isn't as good offensively. Like this team compared to last year is significantly worse offensively. Last year when they played the Bengals, for what it's worth, they sacked Burrow 9 times at home and still lost. It's one of the reasons the Bengals went out and got all these upgrades along their offensive line.
That was 2 years ago, right? Was that his rookie year?
2 years ago.
Yeah.
And the last year they played also, right? Didn't they?
Yeah, in the playoffs.
Yeah, the playoffs. And then, last year when they played, they held Henry to 20 carries for 60 yards.
Well, he was hurt, right? No, I think you're thinking the wrong game. I think that was that was his first game back. It was his first game back, wasn't it? They only played one game. They only played one game. They only played one playoff game, and they lost it. So, I think that was his first game back. They played the regular
season too.
No, they did not.
Yeah, like 2 years ago.
Yeah, I remember you were. I think you were on the Titans.
I'm trying to think if I'm remembering the.
Yeah, but you're conflating 2 different things. You're conflating 2 years the rookie Burrow without, with no Chase, and he wasn't really even Burrow yet. And then last year, the playoffs, the Titans were the number 1 seed, but they had no Henry. They got him back, but he looked sluggish. And then Tannehill threw the 3 picks, and the Bengals won by 3.
Got it.
Okay.
I got it. So last year in the playoffs, who beat this Bengals team? It was, who almost beat this Bengals team? Where did they get all the yards? It was A.J. Brown and Julio Jones, I believe, who combined for like over 200 yards receiving. It is now like Nick Westbrook-Akina and Treylon Burks. It is a significant downgrade. The offensive line.
Robert Woods is there too. Robert
Woods. You might not have your starting center. You already don't have your starting left tackle. This offense is significantly worse than it was last year. The defense is also significantly worse. You have backups in the secondary. You've already lost Harold Landry, your best passer. Now you're going to be without Danico Autry. He's top 10 in the NFL in pressures and in sacks. He's probably been their MVP. If you don't want to include Jeffrey Simmons, who's just a monster. But Autry's a massive loss after you already don't have Landry. And like I just said, they have not beat a team that sniffed winning record. If you include Wentz, like they beat the Raiders and they've been outplayed in these games. They're finally going up against a competent team with a competent offense that can pick apart this really, really vulnerable secondary. Joe Mixon might not play. Great. I don't want the Bengals sitting here handing it off to Joe Mixon on early downs. This Bengals team really looked focused last week. I loved what I saw out of them after the bye, because guess what? Bengals lose this game, I got a prediction. They're going to miss the playoffs with their schedule coming up. They're Bills, Ravens, Chiefs. They got their schedule is the hardest in the NFL. I think you saw that focus coming out of the bye. And look, I got to give a lot of credit to Vrabel. I think he should be coach of the year. But this Titans team has been extremely fortunate, and they beat nothing but bad teams to get to 7 wins. I'll take the Bengals at home. I don't love it as much as I'd love some of the other bets against the Titans, and because I did upgrade them last week. But at under a field goal here, it's an ugly card. I did play the small, so I'm going to roll with the Bengals here, laying the short road price.
Yeah, so I mean,
Chase might play, which would obviously only help, but I'm not banking on it.
Yeah. I mean, he could, because they did waive Mike Thomas. I mean, they also called up Trent Irwin, but, waiving Mike Thomas was interesting. That makes me think maybe Chase is going to play this week. But, I think it's more about the bank. Like, if you're this bet, every week, I feel like betting against the Titans, people try to come up with all these reasons why the Titans aren't as good as they've been. And it's like, we're going on 3-4 years now, this team overachieving. It's just what they do. They're going to be more efficient. They're a red zone outlier. They essentially sustain outlying success in the red zone. And another thing about this team, and it really struck me when I had that under, I think it was like 36 or something, 36 and a half a few weeks ago. And like half of the defense was out. And I was like, oh man, should I buy out of this? I don't know. Like, I didn't expect everyone to be out, but this team is so deep that I don't think it's even about, they have a lot of studs, and it's like a few of them could be out. And I still don't think it's a big deal. I just think this Bengals team, like, unlike the Bucs, for example, I think this Bengals team just has a margin for error. Like, this Bengals team, Joe Burrow can throw an interception right to the defensive lineman, or take a bad sack, or whatever, and they could just come right down the field in the next possession, and 3 plays, boom, 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 touchdown. That's just, this Bengal team can beat good defenses. I think that's kind of what you hang your hat on in this bet. Like, I think the Titans, I don't think it's about trashing the Titans. I just think the Bengals are one of those teams. They can lose to anybody, because sometimes it just gets ugly with the pressure and whatever not. But they can also beat anybody, as they showed on the way to the Super Bowl last year.
Yeah, but I also look at the Titans. I used to I would bet them as a dog at a weekly basis the last couple of years. I actually don't think I think their secondary is horrendous. They're probably going to be about a couple other guys this week too. But
who's horrendous? Like, who? They got
who do you like?
Bayard. They got what's that dude?
Hooker might be out here too. They have no.
Oh, they got Adams. They got isn't Adams still there? Like, they got like 5. That's what I'm saying. They're like 5 deep at every single position. It's like,
so who do you like in their secondary?
Hooker
might be out.
I like Fulton, Bayard, Hooker.
He might not play. Hooker might not play.
Okay, but you still got Bayard. Like, first of all, Bayard's
out. Molden might be out, and they have 3 other guys on the IR. Yeah, I mean, it's just Bayard. I mean, if Bayard's going to cover everyone, great. You got a rookie.
McCreary is pretty good. Yeah, he's been playing well.
But look, against who? That's my point. Is I don't think that this is what I think that this team is different. This Titans team, the quarterbacks that they have beat are Carson Wentz, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, who couldn't throw it 4 yards in front of him, Davis Mills, Derek Carr, and Matt Ryan. That's it. So they've played not a single competent quarterback with a single competent passing attack the entire season that they've come out on top.
But they also covered against the Chiefs. They covered against they were underdog in that game against the Pack. Like, they can only do what their schedule allows them to do. Like, they covered the games in which, you would look at it and say, okay, this is a competent quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, well, look, they lost by 30 to the Bills, and they didn't cover at home against the Giants. Yeah, but they didn't cover at home. They lost at home to the Giants. And the other thing is they've been outplayed in all these games. Like the numbers that they've given up to some of these quarterbacks have been troubling, in my opinion. Like why is I still don't understand some of the red zone issues on the other side of the ball too. Like teams are just like I didn't even get into Waller drops a wide open pass, gets picked off, decides the game, hits him in the chest. Darren Waller. So like there's some things that are happening for the Titans that have just been extremely fortunate. And I think that this is the week that they get picked off. If they don't, then great. I'll tip my hat and I'll probably have to upgrade them again. But there are teams that just are lucky. I don't think the Titans have been lucky in prior years. I think that there's an unquantifiable advantage that Mike Vrabel brings to the table. And the way that I said that they played, like in the red zone on 4th and shorts, when you have Derrick Henry, you're going to, and I do think Vrabel also is just a good coach in general, just with his game management and preparation. But I think that this year, and it's just my opinion, some people might disagree with me, they've been extremely lucky week in and week out. And the main reason I think that is whenever I've had bets that I've won against them when I got lucky, like the Texans tease. That was a joke. I should have lost. But when I go back and look at any game I lost before last week, I was like, all right, they got outplayed in every single aspect. In the past, that wasn't happening. So yeah, we'll see. It's a little different than fading the Titans when you need to beat them by more than a field goal.
Yeah.
Like I said last week, I took the Packers -2.5. It closed -3.5 in one of the most efficient betting markets in the world on a primetime game. That was technically a good bet. I say it wasn't because they got dominated. But I would not lay 3 here. I would not lay 3.5. 2.5 would be my max, and that's it. So I look forward to battling with Titans fans this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, no, a lot of what you said is true. I just think, Andrew Adams, another guy in the secondary, very good. But this Titan team, at least from my perspective, watching them, I feel like they have been lucky, or much luckier than usual this year. And it hasn't been as impressive at times. But I also think they are trending up because I think, for example, like the receiving core, everyone likes to point to, oh my God, one of the weakest receiving cores in the league. Well, if Treylon Burks keeps breaking out, Robert Woods is a very solid, start like a number 2, not necessarily should be a number 1, but Burks looked like he's on his way to doing that. And then Westbrook-Ikhine is showing that he can give you explosive plays when he's the 3rd option. You have 2 good tight ends, so, and then, like I said, the defense is deep. Really, the biggest issue is going to be the offensive line, but you have Derrick Henry, you have play action, there's just a lot of ways that they can kind of make up for their weaknesses. So I think this team will keep getting better down the stretch. So it's not a team that, okay, it's like I saw them be unlucky and now I can act on it a ton. I just see this team is kind of improving because, it's Vrabel. He comes from the Belichick school. You want to be playing your best football in December. So I would also caution people to okay, let's the Titans' luck is going to run out. It might not because they've been there and done that before.
Yeah, I think that they'll be a sneaky dog as always, a valuable dog down the stretch. At Philly, next week will be a good spot. At the Chargers in 3 weeks. Again, another questionable run defense there.
I mean, I could see them being favored. They might end up being favored in that game if things go
healthy for the Chargers.
Yeah, exactly.
And then home against the Cowboys.
Ooh, they could be dogs in that one.
Yeah, they'll be dogs in that one, December 29th.
Ooh, that is juicy.
Yeah, so the other games are Jags and Texans. I probably won't play them there. I don't want to play this team as a favorite. But yeah, I think that there's some three good dog spots for the Titans coming up here.
Yeah,
and they're only going to get healthier. Like their offense, they're dealing with a lot of injuries right now, and their depth is only going to strengthen because of that. And they play a brand of football that's like, hey, it's December, we don't give a fuck.
Yeah, man. No, that's what I'm saying. It's like this Titan team, you can't certain teams, like the Giants, I think are probably a better example. We've been, or the Pittsburgh Steelers a couple years ago, where it's like, okay, this team is just not as good as its record, and we can take advantage. Whereas the Titans, they haven't been as good, but I think they're getting better. Like if Burks and even if I don't know, was Downing drunk during the game? because I've
That was so
never
weird.
seen him call salt the game away 50-yard bomb down the field on the NFL's highest paid cornerback. Like, I did not, with a rookie receiver, no less. I just,
Yeah.
I
And then he got arrested for DUI
I know.
like an hour after. Like he must have got an early start.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But I mean, whatever it is, and like you said, Tannehill looked good. They deserve an upgrade. So yeah, I think this team's gonna peak, and I think they're gonna like this Titan team more than any of the other ones, actually, because first that they used to be like Cinderellas, and you always kind of worried about them. Okay, well, they got to go up against the Chiefs, so they're gonna be able to hang. But like this Titan team, to me, if they can just find health, or maybe they, every year there's like these random off the street free agent offensive linemen that are like revelations. If they could just keep that O line in a decent place come playoff time, I think this might be the most dangerous Titans team, because I don't think they have a lot of weaknesses outside of their O line getting hurt. So
yeah, I will say I'm curious to see with Landry out, with Dupree potentially out. I do think that, and it's only going to be one game. They're saying that's the word. I do think that Autry matters, and that's a guy that does not get recognition. Like he should be in the conversation for like all pro this year. What they lost on their defense, and then they're still able to generate pressure from the inside. He's top 10 in the NFL in sacks and tackles for loss, and pressures, I believe. He is, and if you asked, people that know the NFL game, list the players that are on this list, top 10. He's a name people will have to dig for, and it takes a while to come up, and he doesn't get enough recognition, so we'll see. I know people in Tennessee were concerned it was going to be season ending, which it isn't, which was good to hear. So, all right, I think that's it, right?
Yeah, we have a long tangent on Tennessee, but hey, they always say, I know a lot of people that listen to this pod, they, if there is a complaint, they're like, we don't really show their teams any love. So I'm giving the Titans love. I think the Titans are a deep team. I think they're one of those teams that I kind of made a note about, like, don't overreact to any singular or even, cluster injuries, especially on their defense, because it just next man up, and they have a very deep team, deliberately, because they had a lot of bad injury luck, and so yeah. Let's wrap up the 6-pack. We got,
and by the way, Titans fans, we just told you three times where I can almost guarantee you that we will be on you in
and guarantee that they'll cover too. So let's see. We got Trevor Lawrence, potentially Zach Wilson, maybe some Mike White, maybe some Joe Flacco, some Joe Burrow, some Rodgers, some Brissett, and some Sam Darnold. So good
little smorgasbord.
Yeah.
Everything.
So Stuck is on Jacks, the Jaguars +4, the Jets -4.5, and the Bengals -2.5. I'm on the Pack +7, the Browns +3.5, and the Panthers +2.5.